Jacob Blake is paralyzed now. Jacob Blake, a father of
Yeah.
three, who was breaking up a fight by all accounts, breaking up a fight between women. He didn't adhere to what the cops told him to do. And it's almost like you're talking to a grown man who's unarmed and didn't do anything. I mistakenly said yesterday that he had a weapon, but he did not. He was walking to his car where his three babies were.
I know.
The cop pulls on his shirt, stretches it, and then shoots him. They said
Right.
7 times. His daddy said 8 times. There are 8 holes in his body, and he now can't walk. A 29-year-old man with 3 children. How is he going to make a living, play with his babies?
So
He
tragic.
survived 8 bullets. He survived, which lends people to think black people are superheroes. We are, but we can die. Yes, knock it off. And I don't understand. No mention of any police, no mention of why the country is racially on fire, why that couple had to come out of their house with the guns. No mention of that at all from
Yeah.
what I'm seeing on my
Yeah.
Twitter feed, because I didn't spend a minute watching it last night.
Yeah, I did see one of the big slogans that they were pressing last night on Fox News was, and I'm not here actually because this might have been the first time in about 2 years that I've seen Fox News. So just for the record, but I did see their slogan, they want to defund the police, we want to defend the police. So that's a big line that's going to be running through the RNC convention this week. And I think it's really frightening. One of the things that's really extra tragic about this shooting in Wisconsin, it made me remember a study from a couple of years ago where, Wisconsin has consistently been ranked the worst state in the United States of America for Black people. And Racine, Wisconsin, has typically been ranked the worst city in America for Black people. Racine is about 11 miles from where this man was murdered or shot. Sorry.
Well, I mean, let's say they murdered his future in so many ways by
Okay.
paralyzing a person
Right.
with three
right.
babies, 3 children, a father who will not be able to ever play ball with his sons. Like,
Right.
are you kidding
Right.
me? For
Right.
what?
I mean, in a place that is so economically devastating, lack of employment, lack of educational opportunity, in every way, this is a place and a space that is already primed to be hostile toward Black people. Do you understand what I'm saying? By the way that they organize their communities, and in Wisconsin, in such a very segregated state. So it's devastating to me. And of course, I'm watching this and I'm thinking of my husband, who is the first person to try to be a caretaker in a situation, and I'm really trying to convince that part of him out of him, but I can't, because it's just, some people are made
Right.
to go and do the right thing. So here's a man who is made to go and do the right thing when you see a fight, to try to break it up and to try to, bring peace, and who's so deeply devastated. And, I'm not one to say that certain people deserved it and other people didn't deserve it. I don't even believe in guns. I don't think we should have guns circulating in our society like this. But it's really, really tragic. And, it's really hard as a mom to try to imagine how I'm going to teach my son to try to intervene and stand up for the right things, stand up for women, be a good person, when those are the kinds of consequences that also can come for that kind of morality. It's just tragic. It makes me sick. It makes me sick.
Jacob Blake Sr., Jacob Blake Jr., 29 years old. Jacob Blake Sr. confirmed that his son was that he survived, but he is paralyzed. And he said, "I want to put my hand on my son's cheek and kiss him on his forehead, and then I'll be okay. I'll kiss him with my mask. The first thing I want to do is touch my son." The notion of Black men not having daddies, not being fathers, when that's absolutely the opposite. More Black men have relationships with their children than white men. Relationships. I'm not talking about putting a check on a camp or a school bill or paying for a mortgage or what have you, or rent. I'm talking about relationships. And the more I'm out in these streets because of COVID on my bike, the more I see it. the most heart warming scene recently. I saw two, and they were teenagers. They had to be young, young boys in Newark with baby carriages. And so it's like they were buddies hanging out with their babies, and they were young. Young men, they had on their masks. They were out on the corner, and I was like, we don't see these stories, right? And because we don't see these stories, when folks encounter us, they treat us like the animals that they've been taught that we are. There's no way in hell that you can empty your gun into a human being who is unarmed, who is not swinging on you. All he did was not comply, because he's a grown man who has rights. And yes, we're supposed to comply, but that shouldn't be a death sentence when we don't. When he was going to check on his children. The only way a person can do that is if they don't see you as a human being, that they don't see you as the same, that they don't look at that person and see themselves. And I don't know what we do about it. So there's several, we're going to take some calls, 866-801-8255. But I want to especially shout out Bucks superstar George Hill. He used to be at the Pacers. I liked him. He was one of the few players that I liked when he was on the Pacers team, because I hate Paul George. Not hate, but I hate his whole thing. But George Hill was my favorite Pacer. He said that he believes that they shouldn't even be in Florida right now, the NBA, at Walt Disney World, because there's so much going on that they need to be out in the streets. I know LeBron has been very vocal. They're wearing the T-shirts, but this is a distraction. You do this in the gladiator times. You give us sport so that we can be distracted from what's going on in the streets. And he said after the shooting of Jacob Blake, he said, we can't do anything from Orlando. First of all, we shouldn't have come here to begin with, to this damn place, he said, to be honest. I think coming here just took all the focal points off of what the issues are. And I think he's absolutely right. Stephen A. Smith, my buddy, said some things today. I want to play this clip as well, and then I'll ask your opinion. Let's play Stephen A., his message to white America.
Here's what I want white America to understand. Dylan Roof goes to a church in South Carolina years ago and shoots 9 black worshipers. There is a manhunt for this person. Not only is he arrested, they stopped him at, I don't know whether it was McDonald's or Burger King. They actually stopped to get him food in bringing him into custody because he was hungry. But an unarmed black man ends up getting shot. See, the problem that exists with white America is that this is what a lot of folks in white America are not getting. Because that's the question that black folks continuously ask, facetiously, no doubt. But we ask the question nevertheless, how is it that a white person can find themselves committing acts of violence, but they get arrested, but unarmed black men are getting shot? That is the fear that LeBron James, I believe, was alluding to when he said, you just don't get it. How scared we wake up every day. We have children. We're wondering what's going to happen to us.
866-801-8255. Dr. Sophia Noble is here. The Algorithm of Race is her book. Algorithms of Oppression. So when you hear that, you have a 9-year-old. Right, you're raising a little one. Your husband, as you mentioned, is somebody that's going to jump in and make sure everybody's good. But when you're in a space where people don't see you as human, how do we get them to see us as human? Like, what's the solution here?
Well, I mean, there's so much in that clip that you played. I will tell you that one of the things that's so interesting, I wrote a whole chapter about Dylan Roof in my book, Algorithms of Oppression, because one of the things that we know from Dylan Roof's manifesto is that he said he did Google searches on different kinds of phrases. So one of the phrases that he came into contact with in his life was this phrase, black on white crime, which is a racist red herring. The only people who say black on white crime tend to be like white nationalists, white supremacists, because we actually know that there is no such thing as black on white crime as a phenomena in society. So Dylan Roof does this search, and he finds all kinds of white supremacists, anti-Black, anti-Semitic websites that radicalize him. Quite frankly, that's the only way you can characterize it. And so he comes into contact with all of this dehumanizing content about Black people, and then he, in his own manifesto, says that by doing these searches, he became racially aware. Now, I think there are so many people in this world, it's one of the reasons why I write about Google and search, who use search engines and use technology and the internet to understand people, especially people they don't have a lot of relationships with, or they're trying to make sense of the news. In the case of Dylan Roof, he was trying to make sense of the reporting on the murder of Trayvon Martin by George Zimmerman. That's what started his search. And you think about the ways in which the effort to combat dehumanization is so crucial, because you can actually shoot a man 7 times in his back when he's not a human to you, when you feel you have the right to aggress just because you're afraid, just because you have little contact, or your only contact with Black people is adversarial through the media, through television. So it's interesting to me how Black people, we occupy this position of both being dehumanized and also being superhuman at the same time. And this is the part where I think about our athletes, our professional athletes. Everybody wants to tune in and see LeBron, wants to see all of the superstars, and they will love us if we're superhuman and indestructible. But they also will not love us when we, are indeed just regular human beings. So I think there's a lot of complicated history in the United States that we're going to have to reckon with and get educated. At my son's school, they have us reading this summer this book, How to Be an Anti-Racist.
Dr. Ibram Kendi.
Yes, Ibram Kendi. He had a book before this book called
Stamped from the beginning.
Mm-hmm. You know that book. Now, that is a really powerful book if we really want to help listeners understand. Read the book, get the Audible, listen to it while you're in your car. After you listen to the Professor Hunter show, listen to the Audible of Stamped from the Beginning, because then we understand that it's a system that we are born into that socializes people into certain types of positions and relationships to one another, and we have to break those systems of dehumanization, and that's really important for us to do. That's our work.
People are going to want to have to go down the rabbit hole, and when they go down the rabbit hole needs to direct them into salvation, into something empowering, not just for the clicks and the giggles. 866-801-8255. We're going to have a powerful conversation today with the president and CEO of En-ROADS about this notion of how we empower our young people into success. But let me take a couple of calls. We got Dr. Safiya Noble. She's here. She's the author of Algorithms of Oppression. Let's head over to Mark in Tennessee. Welcome to the Karen Hunter Show.
Good afternoon. How are you ladies doing?
We're great.
We're good, thanks.
Hey. So my initial call-in was about the shooting that happened in Wisconsin here recently. Mm-hmm. You guys realize that the police knew who he was because he had a warrant out for his arrest.
Okay.
You knew
but
that
was he Mark, no. We're talking about a human life who was unarmed. Was he unarmed, Mark? Did he have a gun?
Well, nobody can predict that.
No. What you're going to do, there are rules of engagement here. I'm going to ask you a question. You're going to answer the question. There's no filibuster. You don't get to do a monologue or soliloquy. This is not your show. So if you want to have an engagement with me, you're going to do it on my terms. Was Jacob Blake armed? Yes or no?
No.
Okay.
But.
No. Doesn't go this way. So the man's unarmed. Was he a threat to the police? Cops will say, because this is their script, I felt like I was in danger. Now, I know as a person who, I don't have a whole lot of fear, but when I'm afraid of something, I usually run. Now, if I'm a trained cop with a gun, maybe I do something different. I don't know. But do you take a person's life, Mark? Do you think it's good? I don't care about his past. I don't care about his present, actually. I don't care if he had weed on him. I don't care if he was carrying, anything. I'm asking you as a human being, Mark from Tennessee, does Jacob Blake deserve 7 bullets in his back? Yes or no?
Yes, and I'll tell you why. Because he was making an aggressive movement towards a vehicle with children in it. Now, the cops at the time don't know what his either motives or what he has on his person are. They just know that now there are children that have been put in harm's way, and they need to neutralize the situation.
Oh, so you're saying, Mark, that the cops cared about Jacob Blake's children more than Jacob Blake cared about his children, who he was coming to the car to check on. A man that was there to break up a fight. I don't care about his record. And this is what you do that I think is really evil. There's an evil, demonic spirit that would call up this radio show while we're having this conversation and inject into the conversation something about this man's past. Not paying homage to his humanity, not talking about the fact that cops who have the license, obviously, to kill, they're imbued with that, but they're not judge, jury, and executioner. We have a system of laws here. If Jacob Blake did something wrong, arrest him. Arrest him and let him go before a judge or a jury of his peers and make his case. But to gun him down and then you call up and bring up a record, what kind of person are you, Mark? What kind of person are you?
I would love to answer this.
Yeah, answer that.
He is making...
You answer that question. What kind of human being are you? Or are you a human being? Do you have a shred of humanity? Are you a person? Do you care about people? Or you only care about people who are like you?
Oh, yeah. What, redskin like me? Yes, that's what I care about.
Okay, all right, then that's good. That's what I thought. Smiz, do your job.
Kiss my entire ass.
And this is always interesting because it shows up in the comments. Wow. It shows up, anytime you talk about something like this, Dr. Noble, people will have, they feel compelled almost. Like, I don't feel compelled to call up to tell you something that doesn't impact me. First of all, if I don't give a damn about you and your people or whatever, I'm not calling up. But you tune in with a keen ear, waiting for something to call up. Opening. So this is a sociopathic. There's something really diseased here that you feel that you have to express this as a man lays paralyzed. You don't give a damn about that man's kids, his kids' future. He's paralyzed right now, and his crime is what? He didn't comply, so he deserved it, and you said, yes, he deserved to be shot in the back 7 times. That, to me, is the problem that I don't know how we fix.
I mean, I cannot believe that you think that the way to check on the kids, even in his own logic that he put forward, well, he might have been going, what, to hurt his own kids? No, that's just nonsense. But you were there. You want to assert that the police might have actually been trying to check on the kids, so they gunned down the kid's father in front of them. I mean, there's no logic in this. Of course, this is just the way in which people are so emboldened to bring the nonsense. I mean, it's just shocking to me, and I reject it. And I would just listen. You're bad. You are super bad, Professor Hunter, because when people come at me with the nonsense, I'm just like delete, block. I don't even engage
I do that in my real life.
But this is because this is
no.
incredible.
This is radio. This is radio, and to some extent, that all of the millions of ears that are listening need to see what's out there, because some of black folk live in a bubble where they can't imagine that there are folk in this world that really want to do us harm, even after watching George Floyd, and that even after watching George Floyd, there are still people in America who are melanemic, who are, void of humanity, who still, and there's a lot of them. It's not a little bit. They show up as Proud Boys. They show up at rallies. They run over people at they're here. They're here. And there's a lot of them. And
that's right.
68 million people pulled the lever for Donald Trump, knowing what he was. And I believe they'll do it again in November.
We are humans. God did not make one type of tree or flower or fish or horse or grass or rock. How dare you ask him to make one type of human that looks just like you?
Wow.
I'm not talking to just Caucasian people. I am talking to everyone. White, black, Japanese, Chinese, red, brown. No one is superior to the other.
Right.
The only supreme being is God himself. Please, let's begin to pray for healing for our nation. We are the United States. Have we been united? Do you understand what's going to happen when we fall? Because a house that is against each other cannot stand.
Right now on CNN, Julia Jackson, who is the mother of Jacob Blake, is speaking eloquently about her son, about this moment, about the need for healing, about peace. Just a beautiful woman who is crying and sharing her pain. And I wonder, Dr. Noble is here, Safiya Noble, if Jacob surviving is going to propel this case further. If his survive. So I remember in New York, Abner Louima, who was brutally raped in a precinct, a police precinct in New York City. It was horrific. Had a stick, some sort of mop stick or whatever, rammed up his rectum, ruptured his rectum. He was in, it gave us an image. And I actually was covering that case. I covered that case. I became friends with Justin Volpe, who was the officer who was actually convicted and sentenced to 35 years. His mom was a devout Catholic. We became really close. She was a beautiful woman. His father was a police officer. He has passed away. And he said to me, because I interviewed both his mom and his dad, how could you raise a child like this? And, they did not, own that. But what his father said, had Abner Louima died, my son would be free. He wouldn't have been convicted. He said that to me. As a cop, he understood.
Wow.
Dead man tell no tales. If Abner Louima's dead, then it's Justin Volpe's word, not his. Having Jacob Blake live, if Jacob Blake is, and he doesn't even have, because Abner Louima was a Haitian immigrant. He was, he's not,
Right.
he was not handsome. He was not, all of the things. He was alive. So we got to see him in the hospital with the tubes and then the story juxtaposed against his life. Jacob Blake in a wheelchair. Will that change hearts and minds in this country more than his dead body? 866-801-8255. I don't know the answer to that.
It's a powerful question. I mean, there's no doubt that he will be able to speak powerfully about what his intentions were, what happened in that moment, in a way that, rest in power, Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery and George Floyd cannot. So I think that we need him to live for sure, because his kids need him and his family needs him and the community. I was just reading while we were here on the air today about his parents, were longtime activists, and his parents had worked in ending housing discrimination, in fact, in Evanston, Illinois, where Blake grew up as a child. So, one of the things they forget is that it is everyday people, not just the famous celebrities, but everyday people who have made the change for civil rights in this country. And it is our parents, our uncles, our aunts, our grandparents who did that work and who are also still alive. And Jacob Blake has a family that is powerfully involved in a struggle for liberation and civil rights in the United States. And I think that we need him to live to continue on that legacy, but also he is a known person. We care about him. All of us, who are victims in these ways of this kind of violence in this country are connected to families, communities, neighbors. And we are not voiceless people. We are not people who deserve what we got. The culture of violence and brutality in this country is just unacceptable. And I hope that he lives and lives powerfully, and that this situation creates an opportunity for him to have even more of an impact in the world. And I think many of us are going to be ready to stand to support that.
Dr. Noble's here, 866-801-8255, and you can follow her on the Twitters at SAFIYA, Sophia, NOBLE, Sophia Noble. Let's go to Clyde in Chicago. Thank you for holding. Welcome to the Karen Hunter Show.
Hello, Karen. How are you?
Awesome.
Hey. Thanks for taking my call. I'm a first-time caller, long-time listener.
All right, welcome.
Thanks, Miss. And I was just sitting here because I grew up in Evanston. So I know the family. They lived around the corner from me. I grew up with Jacob, Justin, and Nikki, who was the auntie and father. And it hurts me to my core because this whole family is a representation of living in Evanston. They are activists, politically activists, social justice. There's Jacob Sr., who is the grandfather, then there's Jacob, and then there's little Jacob. And he's like our little nephew, our little son. And to see this happen, I'm a little nervous here. It's the social justice platform that they've had. His aunt, Nikki, who I graduated from high school with, she went into criminal law, but she ended up becoming a public defender because she saw the atrocities of what black and brown people were experiencing. And his uncle, Justin, is a social activist in Chicago. The grandfather has 2 buildings that he had helped establish, one named after him, to help senior housing. As a matter of fact, my mom lived in one of those before her transition. So when this comes so close to home now that, it's like our community has banded together. And on social media, the only thing I'm seeing is from other people is he should have complied, he should have complied, he should have complied. And nobody really knows the story, so there's some wild allegations out there. But I just wanted to give Jacob's name a little background on what the narrative is because sometimes they always talk about his background and everything like that and not know who this man is.
Yes, and we're going to say his name. Clyde, don't be a stranger. Call back. We have to go to a break. It's a hard break, but I appreciate you doing that and honoring Jacob Blake's name and telling the truth about who this man is from knowledge, not from what you heard or read.